Okay, hi, I'm Changkyu, a PhD student at the UiT, the Arctic University of Norway. And I'm going to present my ongoing work, semi-supervised semantic segmentation in multi-frequency echosounder data. This work is a part of COGMA project, which is closely collaborated with UiT Machine Learning Group, Norwegian Computing Center, and the Institute of Marine Research of Norway. So contents, this talk consists of 3 parts. First, I briefly motivate the marine acoustics and multi-frequency echosounder data in terms of deep learning. And I explain our semi-supervised approach and preliminary result, conclusion, and the future direction will be followed later. So marine acoustic data. Marine acoustics is a field of study that investigates the underwater environment by collecting backscattering intensity of the transmitted acoustic waves. Using the frequency and intensity of the backscattering signals, marine biologists classify a few species of marine organisms, such as fish, whale, squid, and so on. However, due to the dynamically varying underwater environment, these approaches cannot guarantee the consistent classification result for kind of acoustic data. Not only that, as the Echosounder exploits an increased number of frequency channels, the volume of the data becomes larger. Hence, to incorporate the increased amount of the data, as well as dynamic environment of the ocean, deep learning-based analysis methods are introduced to the marine acoustics. Yeah, I would like to show you an example of the 4-channel echosounder data. So if you have a fishing boat, if you have been fishing on a boat, you might see this image once before. So yeah, you can simply imagine that there is a boat on the surface. Okay, here. And where the echosound on the boat transmits the echosound waves toward the seabed to the bottom and collect the backscattering signals. So the boat is moving on the same speed to a designated direction. So the horizontal axis of the data can be seen as a navigating time, while the vertical axis represents the depth of the ocean water. And you can see some patterns at the same location over the channels, but with different intensity or different shapes for each channel. And they are groups of fishes that we are looking for. Okay. So let's train the model with this marine acoustic data. But how? You probably find out the problem from the previous slide. Yes, it's extremely difficult and expensive to acquire the label map of the echosounder data. So far, these echosounder data have been labeled by human experts, and it's not only a time-consuming process, but also make it difficult to scale the model to a larger volume of the data. So we should find a new direction that reduces the dependency on the label map. And this becomes the motivation of the study. So we suggest a novel semi-supervised deep learning model that introduced the concept of deep clustering. So, okay, let's take one step further to our semi-supervised model. So the task is the semantic segmentation. We utilize UNet. And we are interested in one specific species, which is called sandeel. It's a small fish. And so we set 3 classes to classify pixels. Here, sandeel, and other fish species except sandeel, and the background, like water, let's say. And to make the problem manageable, we just sample echosounder data patches from 4 channel. We sample patches from the 4 channel echosounder data with a size of 4 channel and 256 by 256. And we use 200, we sample 200 patches for training set and 60 patches for test set. And we simply set 25% of annotation ratio, which means that 50 pages out of 200 are annotated, they are labeled, and the rest 150 pages are unlabeled. So let me talk about the object functions of the proposed model. We have two different types of the trained data set, labeled part and unlabeled part. We will tackle each part of the data with different strategies, where the objective function describes the strategy. So let's start with the label part. For this part of the data, we follow the standard supervised learning method. So here, the classification object is a cross-entropy loss between the model output and the given labels with 3 classes. On the other end, the clustering objective utilizes the entire training data, both labeled part and the unlabeled part. We take the feature representations from the UNet at the second last layer. You can see a red box in the figure in the upper right. And we apply k-mean clustering to the pixels of the entire training data. Note that we want to investigate the internal structure of the data. So we set a number of cluster k as a quite larger number than the number of classes. So we set k, we can say as a 128 in this experiment. And we create pseudo labels for the self-supervision based on the result of k-means, so that the cluster index of each pixel becomes a pseudo label. And now we can update the model with the clustering objective that leverages these generated pseudo labels and cross-entropy loss. Yeah, I bring a Destiny Plus to help you understand the method. So the figure is acquired by a different experiment that shares the same method, but patch level clustering. But I just simply assume that each point in the figure represents a pixel. We can just simply assume that way. The figure in the left shows the clustering result, where the point in the same color takes the same cluster. And the figure in the middle and the right represent 3 class prediction and the ground truth, where the blue indicates sandhill, red indicates the other fish species, and the green indicates the background. And by iterating the clustering objective and the classification objective in a single model, we aim to search the internal cluster structure, and based on the structure, we expect to assign the given class predictions, so that the pixels in the same cluster have the same class prediction. Yes, this study is in the early stage, and I would like to show some preliminary result that we have. So let's have a look at the confusion matrix. The left one is the result from the standard supervised deep learning setting, but we only use 50 labeled patches of training set. In the same context, please look at the right one. This is also the standard supervised deep learning setting, but leverages entire patches with full access to the label map, so 200 patches. And the matrix between these two in the middle represent the proposed semi-supervised method. So each number indicates the proportion of pixels that are assigned to their class, and the sum of each row is equal to 1, so it means the true class. Overall, our proposed semi-supervised method performs on par with the upper bound case, so where the entire training data is labeled. And proposed method outperforms the upper bound setting in the other fish class, interestingly, and shows big improvement in sandhill classes as well from the lower bound setting in the left. So 53% to 68%. Yeah, but on the other hand, this proposed method achieves a lower accuracy for background classes, which means there is more false alarm of fishes. And I think it is considered that the class prediction of proposed method is made in a cluster level, so some background pixels just might fall into the clusters and get the prediction based on the clusters. Yeah, this figure these figures show in the left shows the Echosounder data collected by 4 channels. Yeah, and on the top of the right figure, you can see the label. So if you see carefully in the data set, the left figures in the left, there are patterns in the input data, but not depicted in the label. It is difficult to know if this vague pattern is fish or not, but at least our semi-supervised method just makes them cluster them. Makes the pixels into a same cluster and assign the class prediction based on the cluster. So you can see in the figure in the right and with a very colorful figure. So this is a clustering map. But however, we still see many false alarm near the seabed, and they should be improved in the future work. So conclusion and future work. So we propose a semi-supervised segmentation method based on deep clustering and achieve a promising preliminary result with the marine acoustic data. And we are going to expand the experiment with different annotation ratio. And also we want to improve the training efficiency. Not only that, we need to investigate further 2 class imbalance data cases, because I didn't mention in this presentation, but this marine acoustic data is severely imbalanced. So 99.9% of pixels belongs to the background water. Yes, this is the end of presentation. So